What's up? So if you're just joining, ever watching my videos, this is a live podcast, the Kingsman Report, live podcast, the news everyone ignores. Today is Tuesday, December the 31st, 2019. For those that do New Year's, it's New Year's Eve. I'm here in Oklahoma. It's roughly about 7 o'clock. I got a lot of stuff I'm going to go over. I'm going to cover the U.S. Embassy breach that happened today. I'm going to cover some news that has to do with AI, and then I'm going to cover a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening. And like I said, this is a live podcast. You can call in. The number scrolling across the bottom of the screen. It's 1-408-638-0968, and you can enter the meeting ID. It's 534-233-4758. And if you want to send an email, it's kingsmanreport2019@gmail.com. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. A lot of this stuff, I'm just going to cover it because I covered the article yesterday, I believe it was, where it said that the U.S. was preparing for retaliation from the attacks that they did in northern Syria. And this looks like it was the beginning of it. I don't think that this is the worst of what we're going to get. I know we sent the Marine Corps over there, so the Devil Dogs are there. That'll be in the next article I'm about to cover. So this article, and it says down here at the bottom that there's no word that if the ambassador to the U.S. was in the embassy at the time. From other articles that I read, it was unclear, but then tweets that were coming out of the Middle East from people that I watch over there that are usually in the know about things that are going on there. They said that he was out way before Christmas, so I don't even believe he was there. So the article says a U.S. embassy in Iraq attacked by protesters angry at airstrikes on militia. Protesters angered by recent deadly U.S. air attacks targeted Iran-backed Iraqi militia have attacked the U.S. embassy compound in Baghdad. U.S. troops fired tear gas to disperse a crowd that breached the outer wall of the compound, which is in the capital's heavily fortified green zone. One of the guard towers was also apparently set alight. At least 25 fighters died when the U.S. bombed bases associated with this terrorist organization there in Iraq and Syria on Sunday. The U.S. said it was retaliating for the rocket attack on an Iraqi military base in Kirkuk on Friday that killed an American civilian contractor. Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi said the airstrikes had violated the country's sovereignty and would force it to review its relations with the U.S. So the terrorist organization's commander, Abdul Mahdi al-Muhandis, warned that the militia's response would be, quote, very tough on the American forces in Iraq. So Tuesday's protests took place after funerals were held in the capital for militia fighters who were killed in the U.S. airstrikes. Thousands of mourners, including several senior Iran-backed paramilitary militia leaders, marched towards the Green Zone, where many Iraqi government officials and foreign embassies are located. They were allowed by Iraqi security forces to enter the zone and gather on a street outside the U.S. Embassy compound. And waving their flags and chanting anti-American slogans, the protesters threw stones at compound's main gate, pulled down security cameras, attacked empty guards posts, and started several fires. This situation then escalated when the compound's walls were breached, and the Associated Press reported that the gate at the side entrance to the compound was smashed open and that hundreds of people pushed about 16 feet into the corridor leading into the main embassy building before being forced to retreat by tear gas fired by U.S. troops. And as I said, they didn't know if it was clear if any staff was at the embassy at the time. But like I said, tweets were coming out the ambassador had left before Christmas. So I don't believe he was there. And I guess I should elaborate on this in case you're wondering. Hello, Nick Harley. How are you? In case you were wondering, this is titled Great Exodus. So it's not a biblical exodus I'm going to talk about. And if you're just joining, I cover a bunch of articles and then I get to those. The exodus I'm talking about is that people are basically tired of living in these blue states where the economies are sucking, people are taking dumps on sidewalks, there's safe injection zones going up everywhere, they don't necessarily want economic growth. If they did, they wouldn't, like they did in New York, kick Amazon out. Guess who got Amazon? Guess who has Google? I'm living in a state that has that stuff here. So come here. Our economy's great. So that's the Exodus I'm going to talk about, and I'll get to that at the end of this. This article says, like I said, the Devil Dogs were sent over there. 100 Marines, 2 Apaches being sent to secure U.S. Embassy in Iraq from Iran-backed group. The Pentagon has directed at least 100 Marines to reinforce the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad on Tuesday following violent protests that have sent U.S. diplomats into hiding. Following a State Department request for protection at the embassy, the Marines were approved by Iraqi security forces and deployed via Chinook helicopters, with 2 Apache attack helicopters providing air support. U.S. Central Command spokesman Mike Lawhorn told Military Times. Marines were reportedly from Special Purpose Marine Air Ground Task Force Crisis Response Central Command, a ground force deployed in the Middle East that specializes in crisis response, U.S. officials told Military.com. Unconfirmed videos on social media show what appears to be Chinooks and Apaches flying over the embassy. And here's a tweet right here. Two U.S. Army Aviation UH-60M utility helicopters followed by 2 CH-47F Chinook heavy transport helicopters transferred more U.S. Marines to the embassy and then evacuated unknown people from the U.S. Embassy building in Baghdad 2 hours ago. Says another video claims to show U.S. Marines taking defensive positions on the roof of the embassy. And here's a video, and I'm sure you guys see this. I gotta be careful playing videos on here. I'll get copyright strikes. In a 3-part tweet, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper confirmed that protection measures were underway. The Department of Defense is working closely with the State Department to ensure the security of our embassy and personnel in Baghdad, Esper said. So if you want to read more on that, all the links to everything I read are in the description below. You guys can go there and check that out. So this article, and this is another, I read a lot of articles that have to do with, bad cops making the good cops get a bad reputation. This article says police officer resigns after making up story about McDonald's employee riding pig was worse than pig, is what he wrote personally on his own coffee cup. So a Kansas police officer resigned after admitting that he fabricated a story about McDonald's employees writing explicitive remark on his coffee cup. An officer in Harrington, Kansas police force, who has not been identified, resigned from his position after admitting he wrote effing pig on his McDonald's coffee cup and falsely blaming employees at the location, Harrington Police Chief Brian Hornaday announced during a Monday press conference. McDonald's and its employees do not have anything whatsoever to do with this incident. This was completely and solely fabricated by a Harrington police officer who is no longer employed with our agency, Hornaday said Monday. The actions of this former officer are absolutely in no way reflective of the values and typical character of the Harrington Police Department. I truly hope that the former officer of the Harrington Police Department that did this, I hope he understands the magnitude, the black eye this gives the law enforcement profession from coast to coast, he continued. He's right about that because these bad cops make it bad for the good cops. Harrington Police Chief Brian Hornaday speaking, and that's a picture of him right there at the press conference. And he has to be put out there because the moron that did this, he has to go in and speak up for him. It says, uproar began when Hornaday on Saturday took to Facebook to say that one of his officers, while visiting a nearby McDonald's restaurant before work that day, was given a coffee cup with the offensive message on it. The accusation prompted an immediate investigation by the store, and Dana Cook, who owns the store location, later stated that surveillance footage proved that none of the McDonald's employees wrote any sort of message on the cup. He took seriously our role to be transparent and fully cooperative with Chief Hornaday and his department throughout his investigation. We look forward to continuing our strong relationship with the department moving forward, Cook said during a press conference. Our McDonald's family maintains great respect for all members of law enforcement and our military. So if you guys want to read more on that, link is in the description. I'm glad he quit. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is, you know, it's not funny, but it's strange. It says underage Michigan men arrested after drunken horse and buggy ride. It says Michigan deputies nabbed 4 underage suspected drunken drivers after they were spotted throwing beer cans from their horse and buggy. And if certain people believe in Oklahoma we ride around a horse and buggy, that's that's not true at all. I mean, there's, some religious groups that do, but no. It says the Goldwyn County Sheriff's Office said on a Facebook post that it received a complaint from motorists around 4 p.m. Sunday that 4 men were driving through Beavertown Township and they seemed to be intoxicated. The 4 men were tossing beer cans from the horse and buggy, the driver said. According to the sheriff's office, when deputies found the buggy, there were 4. The 4 were identified by the motorist. Initially, they gave deputies false information about their ages and refused to give their names. However, after further investigation, the 4 were identified as Levi Mass, 20, Andrew Zook, 19, Joseph Miller, 20, and Joseph Troyer, 19, of Goldwyn County. Inside the buggy, the deputies found several open and unopened containers of alcohol. Police determined the 4 were obstruction of justice, disorderly person, and issued civil infractions for minors in possession of alcohol. If you're going to go out and drink tonight, take an Uber, take a Lyft, use Tipsy Toe through AAA, do something. Don't go out and get behind the wheel of a car and kill yourself or some innocent people. Be responsible. Better yet, just stay home. It's safer. This article says DHS chief was warned of dangers facing religious institutions 2 weeks before recent attacks. So the acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security received a stark warning that houses of worship and faith-based groups were in imminent danger of being targeted for violence less than 2 weeks before a machete attack on a New York rabbi's Hanukkah celebration and fatal shooting at a Texas church. A December 17th report sent to DHS Acting Secretary Chad Wolf from the Department's Secretary Advisory Council alerted that faith-based communities continue to be vulnerable to, quote, extremist violence, despite earlier recommendations on how the federal government should move to protect them. The committee's report cited a string of recent attacks, including shootings at synagogues in Pittsburgh and Poway, California, and warned that these have underscored the vulnerability of faith-based organizations and the need to provide for the security of houses of worship in the communities they serve. In this still frame from the live stream video, so it had the video attached to this, and you could see the gentleman that worked security there in Texas and shot and killed the guy with the shotgun after he unfortunately killed 2 churchgoers there. I'm glad he was there. It could have been a lot worse. It says the panel co-chaired by retired Marine Corps General John Allen noted that 2 similar warnings were issued by previous Homeland Security Advisory Council subcommittees in 2012 and in 2014, but there's no evidence that any of the recommendations were acted upon. With this, the third report of this nature, and in view of urgency of our moment and the imprimatur of a subcommittee, this report should be converted into implementation plan at the earliest possible moment, according to the report obtained by ABC News. The committee made a series of recommendations to boost security for faith-based communities, including a suggestion that the Trump administration work with Congress to adopt, quote, domestic terrorism statute, that the federal government increase grant money available for security for faith-based groups. In the last several years, America has experienced an increase in targeted violence against our faith-based communities and organizations, the report states. Houses of worship and their congregants and individuals with particular faith identity have been terrorized and in some cases attacked ruthlessly and injured or brutally murdered. It is every government's duty to secure conditions of peace, justice, and liberty in which people of faith may exercise their religious freedom without oppression and fear. I hate to say it, but it's probably going to become more of an issue as we get further into this. I mean, it's not only a racial and religious divide, a class divide. I mean, it's people are. It's going to get worse. I mean, we're seeing it in military bases, we're seeing it in churches, we're seeing it in schools, we're seeing it everywhere. It's not something I like to talk about a lot. So Joe Biden, this article says Joe Biden wants to end prison profiteering. One of his top fundraisers is a major player in prison health care. The article says after decades of championing legislation that escalated mass incarceration, former Vice President Joe Biden released a criminal justice plan seeking to reverse key provisions of the 1994 crime bill he helped write. The wide-ranging proposal, which he rolled out roughly a week before the second Democratic presidential primary debate in July, would ban private prisons and reduce incarceration. It also takes a clear stance on those who are cashing in on the prison system, stop corporations for profiteering off incarceration, his website reads. But one of Biden's top fundraisers, Michael F. Nidorf, is the CEO and chair of Cinti, a health insurance company that is a major player in the prison health care market. Prisons and facilities in 16 states have contracted out their health care services to Centurion, which is owned by the $60 billion health insurance company, according to its website. This year, Nidorf has also donated to the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and the re-election campaigns of Republican Senators David Perdue, Lindsey Graham, and Susan Collins, as well as Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen, FEC filings show. Biden's platform vows to, quote, end the federal government's use of private prisons by building off an Obama-era policy that was rescinded by the Trump administration, along with ending the use of private facilities for any detention, including detention of undocumented immigrants. Neither the Biden campaign nor Cinti responded to a request for comment. Biden will also make eliminating private prisons and all other methods of profiteering of incarceration, including diversion programs, commercial bail, and electronic monitoring, a requirement for his new state and local prevention grant program. His policy plan says, quote, finally, Biden will support the passage of legislation to crack down on the practice of private companies charging incarcerated individuals and their families outrageously high fees to make calls. Since 2012, more than 20 states have shifted over to private for-profit firms that provide health services in an effort to cut costs, with tragic consequences. It says Cinti, along with its subsidiaries, has faced numerous lawsuits alleging wrongful deaths in prisons, leaving a pregnant inmate to give birth in a cell and not providing adequate mental health care to suicidal patients, the Arizona Republic noted. While landing lucrative deals in states like Arizona and Florida, for example, Centene also contributes to the campaigns of politicians in the states it operates in. So this won't fly. I'm going to tell you that right now because there's too many judges. There's companies like this. There's multiple companies that benefit off making money or the incarceration of individuals through the private prison system. So this is not going to fly. Judges actually invest in these things as well. They incarcerate people, and then they in turn get a profit back, investing in the private prison systems and the companies that are subsidies of these private prison systems. That won't fly. Top UN official accuses U.S. of torturing Chelsea Manning. It says Chelsea Manning was detained on May 16th after refusing to testify before a grand jury. A top United Nations official has accused the U.S. government of using torture against Chelsea Manning, the former U.S. intelligence analyst currently jailed in the U.S. after her refusal to testify against WikiLeaks. All the while, Julian Assange is dying in prison, and they refuse to give him any health care. It says Niall Meltzer, the UN special rapporteur on torture, made the charge in a letter sent in November, but only released on Tuesday. In the missive, Meltzer says Manning is being subject to, quote, an open-ended, progressively severe measure of coercion fulfilling all the constitutive elements of torture or other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Manning, who was detained on May 16th after refusing to testify before a grand jury, is currently being held at the Alexandria Detention Center in Virginia until she agrees to give evidence or until the grand jury's term expires in November next year. She also faces fines currently running at $1,000 a day. In the letter, he writes, the practice of coercion, deprivation of liberty for civil contempt involves the intentional infliction of progressively severe mental and emotional suffering for the purpose of coercion and intimidation in the order of judicial authorities. Warning that, quote, victims of prolonged coercive confinement can demonstrate post-traumatic symptoms and other severe persistent mental and physical health consequences. Meltzer said Manning's detention is, quote, not a lawful sanction, but an open-ended, progressively severe coercive measure amounting to torture and should be discontinued and abolished without delay. Manning's lawyers have argued that her detention is, quote, for refusing to comply with a grand jury is pointless, punitive, and cruel, and warned that she is not likely to change her mind. In a letter released in March when Manning was first sent back to jail, her lawyers warned, quote, Chelsea has clearly stated her moral objection to the secretive and oppressive grand jury process, where Chelsea's friends and fellow organizers, and we know her as a person who is fully committed to her principles. They warned U.S. authorities that if they, quote, believe that subjecting Chelsea to more punishment will change her mind, they are gravely mistaken. Virginia prosecutors are determined to force Manning to testify in what they hope to be an eventual trial of Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. And Assange has been charged with conspiring with Manning to break into military computers to help her transmit a vast trove of U.S. state secrets to the Open Information Organization in 2010, which then published them, causing an international uproar. Manning was subsequently sentenced to 35 years in military prison in 2011, and Manning has spent several years behind bars before Barack Obama commuted her sentence in 2017. So I'm going to get into some tech news. I read, a lot of tech news, and this is more about the listening that's going on in our devices and how you can stop that from occurring. It says this simple trick stops Google, Amazon, and Facebook from listening to you all the time. Smart home devices from Google, Amazon, and Facebook are engineered to listen to your commands and respond to them. Usually, they only engage when you say wake or words as okay, Google, or hey, Google. But these devices are always listening. If that makes you uneasy, and there's some reasons why it might, there's a simple fix to stop your smart home companion from listening in on you all the time. Turn off the microphones on the devices when you're not using them, or short periods of time when you don't want them to eavesdropping. And here's how to do it on your device. So, here's right there. Hey Siri, Google, and Alexa. Enough with the snooping. Is Facebook listening to you? The creepy stories mount. And Amazon Echo devices staffed by Alexa are equipped with a microphone off button that will turn off and on when the button is pressed. The power of the microphones is disconnected and red light is illuminated. So Google Home, Google Mini, and Nest Mini, Home Max, and Google Nest Wi-Fi. So I'm not going to go through all these, but if you guys want to go and check the link out in the description, and then you can go through and read the instructions on how to turn all your stuff on or off. Just came out a while ago. I turned all my crap off on some of the devices that I have. This article says the big change coming to just about every website on New Year's Day. Starting New Year's Day, you may notice a small, momentous change to the websites you visit. A button or link, probably at the bottom of the page, reading, "Do not sell my personal information." The change is one of many going into effect January 1st, 2020, thanks to a sweeping new data privacy law known as the California Consumer Privacy Act. The California law essentially empowers consumers to access the personal data that companies have collected on them, to demand that it be deleted, and to prevent it from being sold to third parties. since it is a lot more work to create separate infrastructure, just for California residents to opt out of the data collection industry. These requirements will transform the internet for everyone. Ahead of the January deadline, tech companies are scrambling to update their privacy policies and figure out how to comply with the complete requirements. The CCPA will only apply to businesses that earn more than $25 million in gross revenue and that collect data on more than 50,000 people, or for which selling consumer data accounts for more than 50% of revenue. The companies that meet these qualifications are expected to collectively spend a total of $55 billion upfront to meet new standards, in addition to its $16 billion over the next decade. Major tech firms have already added a number of user features over the past few months in preparation. Early in December, Twitter rolled out a privacy center where users can learn more about the company's approach to the CCPA and navigate to a dashboard for customizing the types of info that the platform is allowed to use for ad targeting. Google has also created a protocol that blocks websites from transmitting data to the company, which users can take advantage of by downloading an opt-out add-on. Facebook, meanwhile, is arguing that it does not need change. It does not need to change anything because it doesn't technically, quote, sell personal information, and which, you can argue whether or not they do, but they're definitely collecting your metadata. It says companies must at least set up a web page and a toll-free phone number for fielding data requests. Some companies are reportedly hiring outside firms to design special buttons that users can click to exercise their CCPA rights. The links and buttons will direct users to interactive forms where they can specify what they want done with their data. Each company will have its own way of setting up these forms, but there are some basic pieces of information that most will want to fulfill the request. You might want to capture who is the consumer, what exactly is the information, and depending on how much information you store about consumers, and you might want to know what time frame they're talking about, says Joseph Lazzarati, a privacy and data lawyer who is assisting companies with the CCPA compliance. I'm not going to read this because everybody should already know this. Facebook tracks you offline and how to make it stop. If you want to read that article, the link's in the description of the video, and it will be in the description of the podcast as well. Alright, so this has to do with the thumbnail there. I put artificial intelligence in there. It says Samsung tweets cryptic plan to unveil, quote, artificial human. Samsung is teasing plans to unveil what it calls a, quote, artificial human called Neon at the Consumer Electronics Show, which kicks off January the 7th. For the past couple of weeks, a series of posts from the official Neon social media accounts have asked the same question in various languages. Quote, have you ever met an artificial? With a post shared on December 26, spelling out that Neon artificial human. Other than those posts, a Neon website that boasts little more than a countdown of CES 2019, though Samsung hasn't had much to say about the project. But bizarrely, Indian-British filmmaker and actor Shekhar Kapoor has posted quite a bit about it on social media, suggesting he might be involved in the project in some way. Finally, artificial intelligence will make you wonder which one of you is real, reads one of Kapoor's recent tweets, with another urging CES visitors to stop by the Neon Corner to learn more about an artificial intelligence being as your best friend. One thing Samsung will not say about Neon is that it is not related to the company's AI-powered digital assistant Bixby, which absolutely sucks. I turn it off on my phone. I hate it. I use another one, which you can add on your Samsung if you have a home spying device like I do, because, who doesn't? You can actually turn Alexa on, and if you have Samsung and they're connected to your thing, and she's also my assistant on my cell phone as well. So it goes on to say, honored to save much coverage even before we unveiled the official Neon account tweeted on Thursday, but contrary to some news, Neon is not about Bixby or anything you have seen before. It seems we'll just have to wait for another week to learn what it exactly that Samsung has created and whether it lives up to the company's own hype. Probably going to be some iRobot type crap. I'm just kidding, but it might be some extreme stuff. I'm not ready for robot companions. Maybe want to clean the house, cut the grass, stuff like that. So I read that article, and now here's one called Bionic Cat is the Pet of the Future. So now we're going to have artificial intelligent animals to pet and artificial human companions. Chinese technology firm Elephant Robotics has developed a Mars cat, which is billed as the world's first bionic pet cat. The fully autonomous cat is both a home robot and robotic pet that can feel, touch, hear sounds, recognize faces, and play with toys, as well as real cats. Much like an actual cat, Mars cat is very independent and can stretch, sit, knead, and even bury litter without commands. It also reacts to the world around it, and it can express emotion through different types of meows. The company says Marcat can recognize 20 specific commands, including come and sit, and each one is unique from its physical characteristics to its personality. There are 4 coat colors to choose from and 6 personalities, including aloof, enthusiastic, energetic, lazy, social, or shy. The Mars cat personality also develops as the owner interacts with it every time it's touched, talked to, or looked at. The owner changes its personality. The robot is easily programmable using Open API and its Raspberry Pi to alter movements of its 16 motorized joints or change its eye color and sound effects. The concept for the Bionic Cat was first created in August 2018 and has since gone through rigorous testing. 5 generations of prototypes were created before launching on Kickstarter. The Mars Cat will reportedly cost, check this out right here, $1,299. That's the price tag for that little AI cat. When it goes on sale to the public next year, and each box will come with toys for the kitten and different swag for the new owner. The company hopes that Mars Cat will usher in a new era of automation and intelligence, bringing robots into everyone's homes around the world, where they'll inevitably be used to spy on you. Probably take pictures of your floor plan, like the Roomba vacuum cleaners, and get ready for this. This article says Iran says it seized tanker with, quote, illegal oil in Hormuz. Iranian state media are reporting that the country's paramilitary Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, has seized a foreign tanker and crew that it says are carrying illegal oil. It says, but the Iranians said the vessel was carrying more than 1 million liters of fuel and was taken into custody on December 29th near Larak Island in the Strait of Hormuz, according to the IRGC press statement quoted by the semi-official Fars news agency. Some reports suggested there were 16 Malaysian crew members aboard the ship, while others said 12, quote, foreign nationals were detained with the ship. Keep an eye on that area because I think they're going to use that for something that's coming up. Australia fires, military to be deployed to help rescue effort. I read an article yesterday in the video I did yesterday. And by the way, if you watch that video, you're going to have to skip past a little bit because I turned my microphone off. And so there's like dead silence on there. But I read an article yesterday where it says these fires are so bad, they're creating smoke that comes out of it. And the word for the storms are called pyrocumulus clouds. And they create thunderstorms, and those thunderstorms then in turn cause lightning strikes, blow the ambers all over the place, and this is one of the ways that the fires are spreading all across Australia. This article says Australian military aircraft and vessels will be deployed to help emergency services in fire-ravaged states in New South Wales. Thousands of people fled to beaches in southeastern states on Tuesday as emergency level fires spread. In Mallacoota, Victoria, about 4,000 people were sought shelter on the coast, and 2 more people have been confirmed dead in New South Wales, bringing the fire-linked death toll to 12. Authorities say 4 people were missing in Victoria and another in New South Wales. We've got literally hundreds of thousands of people up and down the coast taking refuge on the beaches, said Shane Fitzsimmons, Commissioner of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. Mr. Fitzsimmons said it was, quote, the worst fire season we have ever experienced here in New South Wales. And Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Defense Minister Linda Reynolds have agreed to send military aircraft and vessels at the request of the Victorian government. The Australian Defence Force will send Black Hawk and Chinook helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, and Navy vessels to Victoria and New South Wales, the two worst affected regions. The military is expected to provide humanitarian assistance and carry out evacuations if needed in the coming days. And the U.S. and Canada have also been asked to provide, quote, specialist aviation resources to help the emergency effort. In the New Year message, Mr. Morrison hailed the, quote, amazing spirit of Australians, but warned that the weeks and months ahead would, quote, continue to be difficult. The bodies of the latest victim, a 63-year-old man, and his 29-year-old son were found near the town of Cobargo in New South Wales. Police said the men, named as Robert Solway and his son Patrick by Australian media, had stayed behind to protect their family home, where their bodies were found on Tuesday. I'm definitely praying for the people in Australia. Completely getting out of hand over there. I think this has a video attached to it. Yeah, I'll play the video. I don't think if it has sound, I might get a copyright strike. I don't know. It says MSC Grandiosa cruise ship crashes in a pier in Sicily. It says MSC Cruises, a brand new Grandiosa ship, crashed into its pier as it attempted to dock in Palermo, Sicily, around 8:30 a.m. on Monday morning. No injuries have been reported in relation to the accident. On December 30th, 1,085-foot ocean liner collided with a port as it moved to dock in the Italian island, Maritime Bulletin reports. The cruise ship portside stern above the waterline sustained damage in the crash. I guess it doesn't have it. Yeah, video's down here. I'll play it. It says MSC Cruises, brand new Grandiosa ship crashed into a pier. But I'll go ahead and play this. People listening on podcasts are obviously not going to be able to see or hear what's going on. But what we're watching, and I'll probably end up cutting this part out of the podcast, is this huge ship crash into a dock here. And that showed nothing. So that was a waste of time. But you can see like chunks out of the deal here if you're watching. It says the 1,800-foot ocean liner collided at the port and moved the dock on the Italian island. And the MSC Grandiosa experienced a light lesion in the port of Palermo due to reasons we are still investigating. The ship deviated while maneuvering along the quay side and lightly grazed the end of the quay with the aft part. Anyways, this article says North Korea's Kim to unveil new path in New Year's speech after U.S. misses deadline. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is set to make a closely watched New Year's address on Wednesday, which is likely to offer a glimpse of a, quote, new path he has vowed to take if the United States fails to meet his deadline to soften its stance over denuclearization. The New Year address is expected to touch upon a wide range of issues from foreign affairs and military development to economy and education. In his 2019 speech, Kim said he might have to change course if Washington sticks to its pressure campaign and demands unilateral action, while stressing a, quote, self-reliant economy, a drive he has launched amid tightening sanctions. The United States was on track to ignore a year-end deadline set by Kim, which Washington has downplayed as artificial, to show more flexibility to reopen talks aimed at dismantling North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. The upcoming speech is expected to be the culmination of an ongoing meeting of the ruling workers' parties Seventh Central Committee, a key policy-making body, which Kim convened on Saturday. It was still underway on Tuesday, state media said. Discussions at the gathering remain largely unknown, but official media KCNA said on Tuesday that Kim spent 7 hours during a Monday session discussing state, economic, and military building. On Sunday, he called for, quote, positive and offensive measures, keyword here, offensive, to ensure the country's security. The Central Committee plenary meeting is meant to legitimize the process behind the policy decisions Kim Jong-un will announce in his New Year's speech, said Leif Erik Easley, a professor at Ewha Womans University in Seoul. This meeting is to provide political justification for the economic and security policies Pyongyang will pursue in 2020. North Korea has provided a few hints for what the, quote, new path may involve. The U.S. military commander said Pyongyang's next move could include the testing of an intercontinental ballistic missile, which it has halted since 2017, a long nuclear bomb test. U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien warned Washington would be, quote, extraordinarily disappointed if North Korea's test a long-range or nuclear missile, while Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said he hoped it would choose peace over confrontation. We still maintain our view that we can find a path towards a path forward to convince the leadership in North Korea that their best course of action is to create better opportunity for the people by getting rid of their nuclear weapons. That is our mission set, Pompeo told Fox News on Monday. U.S. Air Force flew an RC-135 surveillance plane over South Korea on Monday and Tuesday, according to the military flight tracker aircraft spots. Despite mounting speculation over the potential military provocation, any restart of the ICBM test could risk a personal relationship with Trump, which Pyongyang has repeatedly touted while denouncing Pompeo and other aides, analysts say. Chow Tae-young, a former South Korean deputy national security advisor, said Kim had few options that can leave the Trump ties intact. In any case, North Korea would add a lot of caveats before and after testing to make sure they're not intent on destroying the negotiation table, and it was the Americans who betrayed them, Cho told Reuters. So, we didn't get the Christmas gift, but I look at the keyword there, offensive. Do I personally think they'll probably start testing again? Absolutely. Absolutely. This article says Dutch researchers say the CIA came up with a way to limit where anti-aircraft missiles could be used. The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency has devised technology to restrict the use of anti-aircraft missiles after they leave American hands, a researcher said. A move that experts say could persuade the United States that it would be safe to disseminate powerful weapons more frequently. The new technology is intended for the use of shoulder-fired missiles called Man-Portable Air Defense Systems, or MANPADS, Dutch researcher Jos Wetzels told cybersecurity conference in Leipzig, Germany on Saturday. Wetzel said the system was laid out in a batch of CIA documents published by WikiLeaks in 2017, but the files were mislabeled and attracted little public attention until now. Wetzel said the CIA had come up with, quote, smart arms control solutions that would restrict the use of missiles to a particular time and particular place. The technique, referred to as geofencing, blocks the use of device outside a specific geographic area. Weapons are disabled when they leave the battlefield. Could be an attractive feature. Supplied to U.S. allies, the highly portable missiles can help win wars, but they have often been lost, sold, or passed to extremists. Yeah, lost. Been lost. I mean, left behind in the desert for people who are anti our government to stumble across and, make groups like this picture shows here. Yeah, see, these guys here. I'm not going to say their names. Yeah. For example, Stinger MANPADs supplied by the United States are credited with helping Mujahideen rebels drive Soviet forces out of Afghanistan in conflict that spanned 1980s and 1990s. But U.S. officials have since spent billions of dollars to clear the missiles from the country and from other conflict zones around the world. Wetzel said it was unclear whether the CIA's design ever left the drawing board or where it was meant to have been deployed. but he noted that the apparent period of development in the documents metadata from 2014 to 2015 roughly coincided with the media reports about the deployment of man-pads to rebels in Syria. Geofencing might have been seen as a way of ensuring the missiles were used on the Syrian battlefield and nowhere else, he said. Of course, the CIA declined to comment. Why would you even put that inside there? Outside experts who received Wetzel's analysis said they found it plausible, and N.R. Jensen Jones, who directs the British-based ARES intelligence consultancy, said geofencing has long been discussed as a safeguard to allow powerful weapons to, quote, into the hands of friendly forces operating in high-risk environments. Wetzel said geofencing was no panacea, running through a list of security vulnerabilities that could be used by the insurgents to bypass the restrictions. This article is titled "A Takeover. China is building enormous, self-sustaining Chinese cities all over African continent." Yes, they are, and it's kind of the coffin apartments they probably have over in China, and the ones that they want to build in a city near you when they fully implement their Agenda 2030 or Agenda 21, whatever you want to call it. Same thing. It says during the colonial times, European powers exploited Africa for the vast resources it possesses, but what China is doing today is actually much worse. It says yes, the Chinese greatly desire African resources, but ultimately what they want is Africa itself. But instead of conquering Africa using military force, China is using economics instead. Today, more than 10,000 Chinese-owned firms are operating in Africa, and virtually every major road, bridge, railway, and skyscraper is being built by the Chinese. As a result, most African nations are deeply indebted to China at this point. Everyone is getting indebted to this guy. I told you Erdogan got money from Xi Jinping. Everybody's getting indebted to China. How do you think they're going to rule everything? It says many people believe that the end game for China is to make a whole lot more money to gain control over a whole lot more resources, and China is undoubtedly pursuing these goals. But as Forbes has noted, ultimately, what this is about is turning Africa into another Chinese continent. Yeah, because he loans the money out. You can't pay him back. This is how he's taking control over all the ports everywhere. Ports in the Middle East. He says, well, I will give you the money to, if sanctions come on you and you can't afford to keep certain ports open or you're having issues there. This is the guy who gives you the money, and then when you can't pay it back, how do you repay him if you're indebted to him? He takes control of your ports. He knows what he's doing. He's not dumb. It says right now approximately 2 million Chinese citizens already live in Africa. You see that? 2 million Chinese citizens already live in Africa. Now the number is steadily rising with each passing month. These days it's difficult to find a major construction project on the continent that is not being handled by the Chinese, and this has enabled them to put their imprint on some of the largest African cities. For example, just check out what is happening in Nairobi, Kenya. It says on the outskirts of Nairobi, Kenya, a small sign points to, quote, Beijing Road, where a new housing development is called the Great Wall Apartments. Looks like the concrete towers you'd find in a Chinese city. Yep. Most of the, quote, cities that China is building are known as, quote, special economic zones, and these special economic zones are essentially enormous self-sustaining Chinese cities that have been dropped right into the most strategic parts of Africa. For example, one of the biggest has been built right next to Lagos, Nigeria. This one says, next to Lagos, Nigeria, Chinese developers have built a walled-off, quote, special economic zone, basically a separate city with separate rules designed to attract investors, based on a model they used inside China for the last 30 years. After Shenzhen became a special economic zone in the 1980s, it went from a small town of 20,000 people to about, by some counts, 15 million people today. In these special economic zones, you'll find Chinese factories staffed with Chinese managers that are supervising Chinese workers that are using Chinese equipment to make their products. And the size of some of these projects is absolutely staggering. Just check out what has been planned for the area along the coast in Tanzania. I'm not going to read the whole thing. This is a rather large article, but the link is in the description if you're interested in taking a look at that. Cover a lot of stuff that goes on with China because they're going to the digital yuan. They're changing their economic structure so fast and phasing out, going into a cashless society, doing a whole bunch of this stuff. I think that they're the ones that's going to lead this new world order probably by becoming a self-sustaining economic system. They're second largest. I think they're going to be they're probably going to outdo us pretty soon. Well, and we're also going to see what this article has anything to do with that potential too. Trump will sign, quote, very large comprehensive Phase 1 China trade deal on January the 15th. It says, following White House trade advisor Pete Navarro's comments on the likelihood of Phase 2 and Phase 3 China trade deals, President Trump has confirmed that the date for the historic signing of the Phase 1. He'll be signing a very large and comprehensive Phase 1 trade deal with China on January 15th. The ceremony will take place at the White House, and high-level representatives of China will be present. At a later date, I will be going to Beijing where talks will begin on Phase 2. At the end of the tweet, Trump Trump most likely attempting to excite equity futures after a rather sour mood on Wall Street to end the year, said that he will go to Beijing to begin talks on Phase 2 trade deal. And while the initial reaction was muted, the U.S. cash open seems to have provided a lift. So, see what happens with this trade deal. Because I know that Xi Jinping got upset because we were getting in the middle of their stuff. So this, I think, is crazy because Trump had that whole little Twitter thing about wind turbines that flew through the leftist media into a tirade. I think the guy just tweets stuff to make people go crazy or have something to talk about. It says New York City wind turbine topples, crushing a parked car. Thankfully, nobody's in it. It says the wind, of all things, toppled a New York City wind turbine, which then crushed an unoccupied parked car, according to reports. The incident Monday afternoon in the Bronx had elected officials who represent the area shaking their heads. A wind turbine should not be able to be taken down by the wind, the New York Post quoted Jamal Bailey, who serves in the New York State Senate, as saying. The wind turbine was erected recently atop a 6-story parking garage, according to reports, and no injuries were reported, according to Fox 5 New York. A WABC TV investigator reporter tweeted dramatic footage of the accident, and there is a picture there. Yeah, crushed it. It says the station reported the wind turbine went up only 2 weeks ago, and on the way down, the wind turbine also struck an electronic billboard that has been the subject of lawsuits involving the billboard's owner and the New York City Building Department, according to the station. And then it goes on to say the New York Fire Department is investigating. Well, I guess the people that were upset about the billboard, seems like Mother Nature kind of took care of their problem for them. All right, so these are the articles that I want to get into that have to do with the thumbnail. The Great Exodus. It says New York is losing residents at an alarming rate. So in California and other, democratic, liberal, socialist economies that are kind of, not being profitable or not growing or kind of they're stagnant. People are dumping all over the sidewalks and tripping over syringes everywhere they go. People, regardless if they're liberal or Democrat or whatever, they're getting fed up with it. The high taxes, the filth, the high taxes, the cost of living, period. And they're leaving. They're leaving New York. They're leaving California. They're leaving everywhere. People are just fed up with it. They're moving to places like Texas, Oklahoma. Funny enough, into the states where they don't like conservative ideas or conservative moral values or necessarily even agree with the people that live in the state and have lived in these states for years. They just want a cheaper cost of living. And where I'm at in Oklahoma, we have one of the cheapest cost of livings in the country. Your money goes a lot further here. And now they're starting to understand this, and a lot of the companies they work for, we have a lot of it here. Like I said earlier, we have Google, we have Amazon, we've got a lot of stuff here. And your money goes a lot further. For an apartment, for a coffin apartment in New York, you can pay $1,700 to $2,000 a month for a tiny apartment. Here, for that amount of money, you can rent a nice house for that amount of money. A very nice house for that amount of money. So this article says New York is losing residents at an alarming rate. It says the New York is in a state of decline. Despite the nation's longest economic expansion, the Empire State is actually losing population, and analysis of newly released U.S. census data released Monday reveals. The total state population of the mid-2019 was 19,453,561, a drop from the 79,790 or 0.4% from the previous year, according to a study by the Empire Center for Public Policy. New York was one of the only 10 states to suffer a total population decline in 2018 through 2019, its fourth consecutive annual decrease after 5 years of growth, and the largest population drop of any state. Only West Virginia, Alaska, and Illinois saw the populations fall at a faster percentage clip. You think with a strong economy, New York wouldn't be losing population, said Empire Center's E.J. McMahon, I guess, author of the report. He surmised that the high cost of living may be catching up with the Big Apple region, historically a magnet for newcomers that offset population losses in economically struggling upstate. Not anymore. New York's population has been stagnant over the past decade, with a modest 75,459 increase in residents since 2010, a growth rate of just 0.4%, ranking 46th lowest out of 50 states. Stagnant growth has real consequences. The state will likely lose at least one and possibly two congressional seats and political clout over the next official decennial census count because of its failure to grow compared to other states. By comparison, the total estimated U.S. population of 328,239,523 was up about 1.6 million over the 2018 total, and since 2010, the national population has increased 19,493,985, or more than that, I guess, million, or 6.3%, nearly 16 times the New York rate. New York, continuing a decades-long trend, was a net exporter of residents to other states, with 180,649 more residents moving out than moving in from other states over the previous 12 months. The New York's net domestic migration loss of this here, getting tired of reading numbers, 1,379,210 residents to other states to other states in 2010 was the largest of any state in absolute terms, and second only to Alaska as a percentage of population at the start of the decade, the Empire Center analysis found. Yeah, I mean, Alaska's nice in some places, but I can completely understand moving out of there. I mean, it's cold all the time. A large influx of foreign immigrants, coupled with natural increase of births over deaths, typically offset New York's domestic migration exodus. But foreign immigration has also plummeted, and even the NYC region's population's growth is flat. New York gained only 45,753 foreign immigrants over the previous year, the lowest annual immigration total since 2010, and the second lowest at least 58 years, amid a fierce national debate over foreign immigration, the study found. Staten Island Republican Councilman Joe Borelli said immigrants as well as New York natives are exiting or bypassing New York because it's become unaffordable. Well, yeah. The cost of living in New York, the high taxes, regulation on housing costs are making it unattainable to live the American dream here, said Borelli, who wistfully noted that many high school chums have moved out of New York. It is hard to see how this changes with progressive Democrats entrenched in government. He goes on to say of the Empire Center, said that even neighboring New Jersey, hardly a low-cost state, is a bargain compared to New York. For all New Jersey's problems, it's still less expensive to live there than in New York City or the NYC suburbs, he said. The Empire Center also recently issued a report showing a steep enrollment decline in New York's public schools, with the fewest number of students recorded in classrooms in 30 years. Meanwhile, the census data show a drop overall in international migration during President Trump's term. Nationally, foreign migration to the U.S. fell to 595,348 between 2018 and 2019, nearly half of the growth rate of the 1,046,709 in 2016, the high point for the decade, U.S. Census Bureau reported Monday. Cuomo's office fired back, claiming that President Trump and the GOP were responsible for New York's loss of residents. No, you are. Look, dude. This guy, more than anybody I've ever read articles about anywhere, blames everything on everybody else except himself by taking responsibility for what goes on in your city. I've lived in New York, okay? I've lived there. It's nice. It's very expensive. In comparison to where I'm at, it's very expensive. Your taxes there are so outrageous. The rent is outrageous. I don't see how... This is why New York never sleeps, okay? It's because people are working 4 to 5 jobs just to pay their rent, a car payment, and buy gas to get back and forth to work. That is why the city never sleeps. Everyone is up all hours of the night going to their various jobs. I know people that are up there that'll go to sleep for a couple hours, wake up, and then go right back to work 2 hours after they went to sleep, doing little part-time jobs all over the city. It's ridiculous. The cost of living sucks. I don't think New York sucks or the people in New York suck. They're some of the funnest people I've ever hung out with. But what I'm saying is the economy there sucks. It says these right-wing cheerleaders failed to mention that it was the Washington Republicans' asinine salt cap who raised taxes on New Yorkers at this time, not the state, said Cuomo senior advisor Richard as a party, I guess. Under this administration, middle-class taxes were cut to historic lows, business taxes were lowered, manufacturing taxes were eliminated, property taxes were permanently capped, unemployment was cut in half, and record number of private sector jobs were created. I wish that dude would take responsibility for state of his own affairs going on in New York. It probably sucks because you guys, you had businesses that were coming there, and then you didn't want them, and you kick them out, and they find other places like here, where I'm at, and we're doing quite well here. So thank you for your ignorance. You're supplying people with jobs to put food on their table here. California mayor on exodus from blue states. He says, I can't blame him. It says California, New York, and Illinois are seeing the largest net domestic migration losses, while the South is seeing a population surge. Mayor of Laguna Hills, California, Don Sedgwick reacts. Max exodus of hundreds of thousands of residents in blue states was to be expected because of their extremely high cost of living, Laguna Hills, California Mayor Don Sedgwick said on Tuesday. Appearing on Fox and Friends with hosts Griff Jenkins and Dean Cain, Sedgwick said that, quote, it's just too darn expensive to live in densely populated states like California and New York. Well, no crap. And probably people don't want to live in, feces all over the ground. I always wanted to visit California, and now I'm like second guessing whether I want to or not. It says, and the Democratic liberal policies have contributed to that, he said. Recent U.S. Census Bureau data shows the South is seeing its biggest surge ever, with over 1 million residents pouring into states like Texas, Florida, and in the Carolinas. According to the Association of Realtors, the median price for a home in California is almost $600,000, while Texas stands at just over $200,000. And you could get a very nice house for $200,000 that's probably just as nice as this $600,000. And it's probably built a lot better because, people in Oklahoma work with their hands and are pretty good craftsmen. I could see it. People are just they're getting tired of it. It says the excess regulation and taxes have been the same. Home in California, 40% of more expensive to build here than it does in other states, Sedgwick told Friends host. So you can't blame people for moving out. This is top income tax states in the U.S. Well, look here, 9.9%, 8.9%. Taxes in Kansas kind of suck, to be honest with you. I've lived there too. They kind of suck. 8.9%. Higher on the West Coast than looks like the East Coast, but still, you're gonna move to the Midwest. Taxes in Kansas are they suck, depending upon what county you're in. But I mean, yeah, people are moving to Texas. Obviously, there's no. I don't think they pay a state tax. They're not paying a grocery tax. It's nice down there. My family's from Texas. Sedgwick said that while he knows the, quote, number one job of the government is to keep us safe, politicians in Sacramento, the state's capital, believe their number one job is to, quote, stick it to corporations. It's exactly what they think it is. And you're ruining your economy because of it. See, if they cared about the best interest or what's in the best interest of their constituents, people that vote for them, put them in office, those types of things, then they would consider things like what would be best economically for the people who put me in here, aside from what's best for me and my image. Who gives a damn what's best for the people that live in your state and in your counties? I mean, seriously. It says, but when they stick it to corporations, they don't realize that they're sticking it to the consumer, he explained. Exactly what I just said. The home builders are making just as much money today as they ever had, and every one of those excess regulations had permits permitting fees are borne by consumers, he added. Additionally, he cited high gasoline and utility prices and exorbitant income taxes as factors to the dramatic shift, and noted that homelessness is in the state has increased while the, quote, rest of the country is actually trending downward. Okay, so you got in California, because I have people that watch in California, listen in California. Yeah, your whole deal you got going on with PG&E, that right there alone in itself has got a lot of people upset. It says the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development reported that homeless population in the Golden State is up over 21,000 from 2018. Sedgwick said that he, quote, can't blame residents for wondering if their quality of life in California is worth it, stating that it is, quote, just become untenable to live here. Well, he's not wrong. So, I put this as the thumbnail because I absolutely see an influx of people that will be moving into, Oklahoma, Texas, Midwest. Honestly, if you want to know how this country is going to go and you live in a blue state where you got these crazed socialist Democrats, I'm not saying liberals, I'm saying these people with these radical ideology that big business is bad, that any of it. If they think any of it's bad, if they're putting their self-image over, your economy, your, being able to pay your bills, put food on your table, supply for your children. If they badmouth capitalism, any of those things, a lot of them got wealthy off of capitalism. That's what is asinine about all of it. But if you want to know how this whole entire country will be ran, just remember where you came from when you come to a state like ours, and you're successful here, and you're productive here, and you can support your family here, and your money goes a lot further. Imagine if we didn't have that. It would be a lot worse. Remember where you came from, because we don't have that here. We have a Republican governor. He's pro-Second Amendment. We have jobs. This area is great to live in. But you guys, remember, at least when you come here, remember where you come from. And don't... we had this whole deal over the summer that was the free or nip thing that happened in Fort Carson, Colorado. And these people thought that they were going to bring that type of ideology to this state where we have certain principles and certain morals, biblical principles, morals, and they want to say that it's because we're afraid of change. No, it isn't. We have small children. We don't want, and this law said anyone from the age 10 and up could walk around topless if they're a female. So we stepped in, Certain cities like Sand Springs, Oklahoma, said that nobody can go topless, man or woman, now. So we're not welcoming it here. So just keep that type of crap elsewhere. We don't, like, we have medical marijuana here. We're Second Amendment state. We have certain things that you guys have over there. But when you come here, I mean, enjoy it. You're welcome here. But just, dude, our state runs efficiently. That's all I'm saying. It runs efficiently. So, everyone, if you're going out tonight and you're going to enjoy the new year, or you're going to go party, or you're going to go drink with your friends, or whatever you're going to do tonight, I recommend staying home if you're going to drink, first and foremost. But if you're going to parties or anything like that, call an Uber, call a Lyft. I think AAA has a thing called Tipsy Toe. I know they do it in Tulsa around here. Don't drive drunk. Don't get, don't get caught in a, one of those sobriety checks. Don't get in a car accident and kill yourself, or the passengers of your vehicle, or some innocent family driving down the street. Call somebody, get a ride. Don't get behind the wheel. Drink, if you're going to drink, I'm not promoting it. Do it responsibly. That's all I'm saying. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here for tonight. You guys be safe tonight. Don't be ignorant. You know what I mean? Look out for each other also. Just call somebody. That's all I'm saying. Just call somebody. Stay out of trouble. Don't go to jail. And just be safe. So that's all the news I have for tonight. All the links are in the description. If you guys do want to go and be a supporter of the podcast, you can go to that website there, and it's anchor.fm/Kingsman Report, and you can become a monthly supporter there. You can also leave a message for the podcast that has links to all my socials on there. If you go to the About section of this video, it has all links to the socials there also. And if you enjoy the video, hit the like button. I go live on Sunday through Friday at 7 p.m. And I post all the links on all the socials, and you guys can click on there, set a reminder, and we'll go live. As always, if you ever want to call in, that number is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And you guys are more than welcome to call in and discuss any articles that I discuss or bring up, and you can also send articles to the email that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen as well. So you guys have a safe night. Watch out for one another. And until next time, Yah bless and shalom.